Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Snow. First off, I want to wish you all a happy Veterans Day. I hope you all get to enjoy the weekend, enjoy some time with your families. Be sure to send up a prayer and thank God for the brave men and women who have dedicated their lives to protecting our country. We're going to be talking about this week are military practices from the colonial period in the Department of Training and Regulations, the Department of Hospitals, and how veterans were treated. Opening, we are going to go in the training manual written by Humphrey Bland, written for the soldiers of the Colonial Army. It is weirdly specific. Every aspect of the American soldier's posture, the way he was supposed to hold his weapon, which hand he was holding his weapon in, everything was regulated. His feet were to be at one step distance, the heel and straight line, and the toes turned outward. He had to hold his firelock in his left hand, with his thumb placed in the hollow, ready to shoot. The elbow had to be turned outward of the body, but without any constraint to the arm. The right arm must hang in a posture when they're standing at attention. He has to be holding his gun a certain way when they're not standing at attention, when they're ready to fire. He must be holding his gun a certain way. His posture had to be straight. Every aspect of this soldier, once on the battlefield, was regulated in this manual, which is very fascinating and riveting to look out. Next aspect is a little more unfortunate. You would see soldiers be wounded, and what happened then was they would be taken to a field hospital. Now, field hospitals have notoriety for a reason, especially in the 17 and 1800s, when there was not optimal treatment available. If you were at a field hospital, you did not have the best there was to offer. You had the best that was on hand, sometimes not even then. Field hospitals still, soldiers, sailors, everybody, there were acts in place from the American Congress that were placed in. You had rules and regulations for how these hospitals were meant to be run. Now, this is a little bit after the war itself, but this is right before the War of 1812. This manual in the District of Pennsylvania was given in 1808, written by Edward Cutbush. He was the primary doctor of the Navy of the United States. Very specific, not the best available, but he makes sure that it's readily apparent that the soldiers are being cared of, and there are rules. Like, you can't just go, okay, since we're on the battlefield, we're just gonna essentially chop doctor these people and give them adequate treatment. No, this book, this manual, was dedicated to making sure that medical treatment was not only forthcoming, but it was of at least some quality. Granted, the time available during a battle is not always optimal for medical care, but that's the battle doctor's job. And this book detailed a lot of the things that the battle doctor was expected to do. Not you two. The final document that I found, interestingly, it's 1794, I believe, is when it was written, and it is about the treatment and the provision for veterans. If you ask any veteran on the street, you know that often not enough is done ensuring that those of our brave soldiers who are injured do not often receive the care that they need. In early America, this was still the case. There were still some issues where needed care was not being distributed. However, if a soldier... Yes, Fluffy, I see you. So does the entire world now. If a soldier had been wounded in line of duty, and this was verifiable, provision would be made for them. All they had to do is turn in a document, and their needs would be met. much akin to, albeit less complicated than, the veteran procedures that many of our wounded soldiers have to meet today. I know this because I pretty much grew up at veterans hospitals. My father was a veteran who had been injured and was cared for by the Veterans Administration. And the processes involved were very complicated. You had to use their doctors in a lot of instances. You had to listen to their doctors. Anything the doctor said went. And maybe that was just for him, but most of the veterans I discussed this with, they had that same sort of thing. They could go to other hospitals, but why would you do that when you have the Veterans Administration, which is, it had good quality health care. It's just they were a very overburdened system. And even back in the late 17 and early 1800s, this was still true, especially when it came to financial reimbursement for a warrior who was wounded but could not work due to that injury. There was still a paperwork process that had to be followed. You couldn't just go, I was injured. I need recompensation. Compensation. I need compensation. Well, you have to prove it, firstly, and secondly, it has to be something that's not ridiculous. Like, you can't go, I got shot in the arm during the battle, so I need a mansion. No, it did not work that way. You would still be compensated for your injury, but it was not going to be anything overly glorious or extravagant. I always feel that more could be done, more should be done, but in the same token, there are still things being done. And one way that you can help without any medical training or whatsoever, just if there's a veterans hospital near you, you can do what I did when I was younger, and you can just ask the personnel people if there's a way that you can help as volunteer. I spent many months volunteering in a veterans hospital library, and reorganizing it, getting the books there, pushing around the book cart. I was still pretty young at the time, but is easily one of the hallmarks of my life, was putting in that time and giving back to the men who had given so much for us. I hope you all have a wonderful Veterans Day. I hope that God blesses you, and I hope that you all have a great, wonderful week. God bless.